If you're a fan of Bridgerton and are looking for TV shows just like it to hold you over until the next season drops, here's a list of TV shows that are worth the binge. One of the shows that has so much in common with Bridgerton is Reign, set in the 16th century. The series follows the story of Mary, Queen of Scots, and all the drama during her time at the French court. However, a fantastic thing about Reign is that, like Bridgerton, the show isn't so strict on costumes, as the outfits aren't historically accurate. And that's pretty interesting because it means, as a fan of Bridgerton, you would be jumping into another show that makes pretty dresses. Also, the costumes are hilarious, and the fresh but distinct look makes the characters stand out, which you will love. For Bridgerton, all the costumes are made specifically for the show, but Reign came up with a little twist for theirs. The costume designer of the show, Meredith Pollock, sourced for some vintage Alexander McQueen, Gucci, and a few other designers' gowns for the characters and made the remaining half for the show. There are also characters in Reign that are written based on historical circumstances, and their story follows actual events, which is similar to how Queen Charlotte is based on a real-life figure. But then, the show gets wild and crazy, with many steamy actions to watch out for, and has many dangerous twists and turns, unlike Bridgerton, where things are mostly romantic. However, if you enjoyed Bridgerton, Reign is a big hit where you see strong leading female characters in the play, an essential part that Bridgerton 3 followed. Also, the show has a clean and superb visual appeal that will tickle your fancy. With Bridgerton, we saw how love plays out within the high-class society. We also saw what it is like to go broke in such a place and how it all translates to who to settle down with and who to stay away from. One show that comes close to this is The Buccaneers, a period drama with a breathtaking and relaxed vibe that's very enjoyable. The Buccaneers is set in the 19th century when 5 American upper-class young girls went to London in 1870 to make a suitable match with the royalties during their social season, and even though that already sounds familiar, you should know it's a lot more than that, starting with the first scene, which will leave you locked in. This show has lavish balls and elegant gowns to watch out for where some romantic awakeness happens. Interestingly, unlike Bridgerton, where the female friendships suffered a lot of times, the Buccaneers thrive on a happy and sustainable one, but will permanently get ruined by societal demands and pressure. Another crazy thing about the Buccaneers is that the female characters are free to be loud and run around as they wish, contrary to being quiet and speaking only when spoken to because they are Americans, which became a challenge for them after getting to London. So there's a bit of a culture clash, which makes things even more interesting as more secrets about the women emerge to create dramatic suspense. And it gets even crazier, especially with the romance, as there's a love triangle with stiff competition, and it's hard for viewers to predict who ends up with whom. However, one of the main characters involved in this love triangle, Guy Thwart, is just too handsome, and his romantic style is so fascinating that some Bridgerton fans have already discovered him, as he looks like a character that could shake things up in Bridgerton. Before Michaela Sterling was revealed, Bridgerton fans proposed having the actor Matthew Broome, who plays Guy in The Buccaneers, portray Francesca's second love interest, Michael. And since he's already so good in another period drama, he would have been a suitable choice if there was to be a Michael on the show. Not only are the male characters very handsome in The Buccaneers, but the female characters are also very stunning, which makes their match in London even more complicated and competitive. The show also has a sweet twist involving LGBTQ+ characters, which might eventually develop into something even more. So, from carriages to beautiful castles and attractive landscapes and gardens, The Buccaneers is a must-watch for Bridgerton fans. On top of it all, the show also has modern soundtracks featuring Taylor Swift, Brandi Carlile, and other great artists. However, the list keeps getting more interesting as Outlander is another show to watch if you love Bridgerton. For Outlander, the theme is a bit more complicated, even though it's a historical drama. The show features time traveling from the 20th century to 1743, and it's entirely based on books, with with one book making up a season, as there are 8 books in the series, one of the similarities Outlander shares with Bridgerton. But then, Outlander isn't just a fantasy or one with pretty gowns to look forward to, as there are a lot of bloody scenes and war happening in the show. However, Amid the Dark War is an even crazier story with steamy love scenes that are very wild but interesting. So the romantic aspect of the story is just very spicy and will take Bridgerton fans back to that world again. And if you think you've seen enough bare bottoms in Bridgerton, wait to see Outlander, because there's a lot more to see the show. Unlike Bridgerton though, Outlander used historically accurate costumes, especially regarding the Scottish kilts worn by the 4 Tartans in the show. The fashion designer on the set, Terry Dresbach, researched the 18th century and came up with hand-woven kilts with a realistic color like the one used in that era. The background is also very genuine, as they filmed in Scotland, which has greenery and a beautiful environment. They also tried to stay faithful to the books as much as possible with respect for the fans, which is something every Bridgerton fan wouldn't want to miss. Mary and George is another intense historical drama to watch, especially if you love seeing the Featheringtons on the screen of Bridgerton. From season 1 of Bridgerton till season 3, the Featheringtons have always been different, and their manners of speaking are just something amusing to look forward to. Most importantly, their consistent financial trouble was one reason why we saw so many comedic statements from this family. And in Mary and George, there's also a similar money problem. The show focuses on the broke Mary Villiers, who was left with nothing after her husband passed away in 1606, leaving her with 4 children to care for. So she had to start looking for ways to transform her family's fortune. As all desperate women in her situation would do, Mary made a bold move to solve their penniless issue in a drama you simply wouldn't want to miss. Mary didn't just go through an easy way, but helped her son George to exploit the king for their benefit. Even though it wasn't explicitly stated, it's believed that there's also a twist where the relationship between George and the king became romantic, as the historian Michael B. Young described the king as the most prominent homosexual figure in the early modern period. Interestingly, like Bridgerton, the show follows a book, but in this case, it's a non-fictional novel, which means there are primarily actual events in the series with even crazier outcomes. The list of historical dramas based on books wouldn't be complete without Jane Austen's adaptations. One of these is Sanditon, based on Austen's unfinished novel, and there are many reasons why a Bridgerton fan shouldn't miss it. Firstly, the romance in Sanditon is very captivating and moving. It's mostly about growth and finding oneself even after meeting the greatest love of your life. It's related to Pen's growth as Lady Whistledown, even after engaging with Colin in Bridgerton. However, the case of Sanditon features 2 couples who went through butterflies and challenges that sometimes frustrate them, but still find it in them to be kind to their partners and the people surrounding them. In this show, you will dive into deception, jealousy, and enemies turning into lovers' moments, which are iconic and can also be found in the Bridgerton franchise. For the first couple, Esther and Babington, the viewers would discover that romance isn't always as it seems, and that even though it started awfully, it could be good with patience and staying true to oneself. And for Sydney and Charlotte, you will see love in some purest forms, like selflessness and compassion. However, in all these, you would find strong and opinionated women who are bold and not afraid to seek out what they desire, which is unique to most of Austen's female characters. Then there's friendship, flaws, and a slight touch on the darkness surrounding maltreatment in relationships, which makes the characters even more complicated but beautifully written. So it's an excellent show for a Bridgerton fan looking to step into more realistic issues in most matches made in the era. Although it's a movie, another Austen work that will transport you back into that world of high-class society is Pride and Prejudice, which isn't only perfect but a timeless work of art. start, the film features the Bennet sisters, comprising 5 young and promising ladies whom suitors can't stop seeking after. So, lovers of Bridgerton would get to see the friendship between these sisters in Pride and Prejudice and how they navigate the situations around them. The cinematography and excellent imagery are another reason Bridgerton fans should pick up this movie. It also has an enemies to lovers storyline with mind-blowing dialogues that will transport you to the moments Kate and Anthony shared in Bridgerton. Then the romantic moments also involve a confession in the rain, and then there's a lot of Pride and Prejudice involved, despite the romantic feelings trying to tear it all apart. Like Bridgerton, Pride and Prejudice has a unique soundtrack that can stand alone. You just have to listen to it to understand why it makes a lot of difference. It also has a remarkable similarity to Bridgerton's orchestra's soundtracks. Also, they don't have to talk too much before they understand what's going on in the room as the tension is high, and viewers can feel every glance, gesture, and brush of hand, which means even more than spoken words. Then there's the humor in every dialogue when they eventually talk, which will stick with you as Bridgerton lovers are used to hearing mind-blowing statements. And above it all, even though you are aware of who the end game might be from the beginning, the crazy romantic moments will leave you trapped till the very end. Bridgerton is such a delight with so much inclusivity going on. Even though we mostly saw the upper class, there were still a few interactions with the average class members of society. Before characters like Will Mondrich came into money, they could still relate with the high class and were well accepted when they became noble. However, as a Bridgerton fan, if you want to see even more chaos among the new and old money, then The Gilded Age is just the right show, and it's a lot more than just the money. The Gilded Age has everything beautifully done, from the characters to the costumes and the sets. In this show, you will see the big difference between the servants of the houses and the owners. In Bridgerton, we see the maids like Varley, but not where they stay in the house when they are alone. The Gilded Age sets this up nicely. The 19th century costumes are also very pretty. Since it's set in New York in the 1880s, the tricky and uncomfortable themes of racism and classism were touched on, contrary to how these facts were eradicated from Bridgerton. Then there's also a lot of power play in the Gilded Age as the new money tries to get favored and noticed by the old money till it becomes a tug of war where it's obvious the new money has a lot of strength to wield things around. So in a sense, the Gilded Age is more realistic but an exciting period drama with unique characters that will leave you gushing. You will also see what it's like for an old spinster in that era, similar to what Penelope thought would be her fate earlier in season 3. So the Gilded Age fills many gaps that a Bridgerton fan would appreciate. Although The Crown is set in more recent times than the previously mentioned series and film, the show is another masterpiece that details the royalty lifestyle down to their romantic affairs and some historically accurate portrayals. Although there are some fictionalized aspects to The Crown, there's a lot of royal drama gripping enough to keep you seated as a Bridgerton fan. From the beautiful set layout, which shows elegant locations similar to Buckingham Palace and royal residential areas, vintage cars, and royal costumes, The Crown did more than enough to imitate the real-life royal household. However, there's more to be seen behind the fancy events, pretty dresses, and loyal servants, as lovers of period dramas would enjoy seeing the struggles and sacrifices the royalties go through. From the challenges the young Queen Elizabeth faced with the prime ministers to the alleged infidelity in her marriage to Prince Philip and her sister, Princess Margaret's cheerfulness, the compelling dramas aren't so far from reality. Then the children, their challenges, and how they were raised are other cute parts of the story, down to the complicated events surrounding Princess Diana's demise. The Crown is definitely like the name suggests, except you get to see what it's like for the wearers and the responsibilities that come with it. Also, many historical events in the show will leave you glued to the screen and take you to the internet to find even more facts behind such a story. Although it's a different era from Bridgerton, the problems are almost alike, and you will enjoy every bit of the drama. While still on the topic of fictional drama based on historical events, My Lady Jane is another superb show every Bridgerton lover would cherish. This show focuses on how King Edward died due to tuberculosis, leading to Lady Jane becoming the queen, and an even crazier twist that you have to dig into yourself. Although the story progresses slowly, it's relatively smooth and makes much sense, especially with how many side plots are attached to the main story. One addition to this historical drama is that shape-shifting is involved, which means some characters could change into animals, making them enemies to people who aren't afraid of them. Then, almost every dialogue in the show is filled with humor and unserious chatter that drives you further into the show's plot. Also, while the characters are lovable, they are complicated and not exactly what you see. And just like how many Bridgerton fans had a love-hate relationship with some of the series characters like Cressida and Lady Featherington, till more about them were revealed, you might also feel the same way towards some of my Lady Jane's characters. For every lover of Bridgerton, a series is incomplete without romance, and My Lady Jane has a lot of spicy moments. The show has everything from love at first sight to intense yearnings and undeniable chemistry.